Hey, so I wanted to do a quick little follow-up on my previous video where I went through getting a project set up using Zero Sync, the local first framework, where I wanted to go through this cool little tool from a third party in the community called drizzle-zero. And it basically allows you to share your schema from Drizzle with Zero Sync, so you don't have to duplicate that code. So just as a quick reminder, I have this sample app, pretty simple. It's basically just a task list. You can move tasks between columns and click into them, that sort of thing. So my initial version didn't use any sort of ORM or didn't really do any direct database connection manipulation. It did all its work through Zero. So you can see this seed script on the in GitHub here of where I ended setting that up. It's basically just create some databases, create some tables for users and for tasks, and then add some test data. So my new version over here, I still have a seed script just to create those databases, but instead I created basically the same thing that I did here over with Drizzle. And so this is the Zero Sync schema definition, creating the tables, and these I created to match what I had already created in Postgres. Same thing with relationships, defining the schema, exporting everything. Permissions I left blank for now. So this is the drizzle schema. And then if you look over in my zero schema file, it's using create zero schema from drizzle-zero. It takes in that drizzle schema. And then this is where it gives you some options. You have to, for each of the tables, you list the table and then each of the columns, and then with a Boolean saying if zero should have access to that field. So I added a couple fields here just to demonstrate. Basically in the user table, I added an email and a password hash. So say you wanted to handle login there with email and password, but you didn't want that to be visible to zero. This is an example of how you could do that. And then by putting false here, zero doesn't have access to that. So you can see down now after it creates the schema, it's a better example down if you look at the user object, user type that's created from the schema. It only has ID and name because those are the only two properties on that table that have the true and are exported to zero. And then for fun, just to test this out, I added another feature that is using that email password for sign-in. So I added this sign-in form, which takes in the username and password. I just pre-filled that to make it easy. It gets the email password from there, queries the database for that email, checks it, and if they match, it will create a JWT and set that in a cookie. Nothing, too fancy, just to test this, and then we'll redirect to the user's page. And then back in this layout, it's basically grabbing that JWT payload and using that as the auth token, and then passing the user ID in to the Zero provider. And I'm actually planning to get into authentication and permissions with Zero in another video, but just a little preview, you can pass in your JWT and that can be used in those permission checks in your schema. And one key thing to look out for is the subject in your JWT should match the user ID that this passes in. So that's what I'm doing here is if there's no token, it's redirecting. Otherwise, it's getting the subject and passing that in as the user ID. And then one last fun thing about Zero and Zero working with Drizzle is the way Zero handles sync is using the stream of changes to the database. So if you make a change separately to a table or a field or something that Zero is watching, it will still apply those changes even if it's not made with Zero. So you can move things around here, but say elsewhere, and I'll just use the Drizzle Studio as an example. I can change for buy movie tickets. Let's say I change it here to done and then save that. It pops over automatically. So makes it really handy and I think makes for a really powerful tool. And so, yeah, if you're already using Drizzle, I think it's a great option and will allow you to, potentially do some sort of gradual migration. Or if you want to use Drizzle to handle things like sign in, for example, and you want to have a little bit of crossover without having to have a whole separate system, one for stuff you're doing on the server side, one for stuff you're doing with Zero. You can sort of intermingle there, not have to duplicate code. So it makes it pretty handy. So yeah, let me know what you think. And I'm having a lot of fun making these Zero videos, learning more about Zero. So if there's anything else you're interested in and recommendations for what I should try next, please let me know.